One of the most interesting things about relationships is how the dynamics of desire and attention are never just handed over, they're earned. And today, we're going to talk about something that might challenge you, but if you listen with the right mindset, it might just shift everything. How to make a woman worry about losing you, not in a toxic, manipulative way, but in a way that commands respect, presence, and real value. The first rule of emotional impact is this: your absence must be felt. When you're constantly available, always the first to text, always picking up the phone on the first ring, always ready to drop your plans at a moment's notice, what you're actually doing is making your presence predictable. And unfortunately, the predictable often becomes invisible. People, by nature, value things they feel they can lose. And when a woman knows that she can reach you anytime, that you're always there, waiting, hoping, anticipating, she loses the urgency to prioritize you in her life. It's not about playing games or ghosting. It's about making sure your presence carries weight. Think of it like this: if your presence doesn't leave a void when you're gone, it's not really presence. It's just noise in the background. But when your time is valuable, when your schedule is full because you're living your life intentionally, that space you leave behind becomes noticeable. When you pull back a little, not out of spite, but out of focus, she starts to notice your silence, your absence, your energy going elsewhere, and that space causes reflection. She starts to wonder if you've lost interest, if something's changed, if she's still a priority. That's when her mind starts to run. Why hasn't he called today? Is he okay? Who's keeping him busy? Did I do something wrong? Not because you're manipulating her emotions, but because she's realizing that your presence is no longer something she can take for granted. And in that realization, worry is born. Not fear-based worry, but the kind that reminds her your value is not limitless. Your time is not disposable. Your attention is not owed. You become someone whose presence means something and whose absence echoes. The goal isn't to disappear. It's to be remembered even when you're not around. Because when you're always there, always giving, always pouring, you leave no space for her to step forward, to chase, to wonder, to miss. And when she doesn't miss you, she stops valuing you. So you pull back just enough, not to hurt her, but to give her the gift of realization. You become the man who doesn't need to remind her you're important because your silence does it for you. Your distance speaks in volumes, and your absence suddenly becomes more powerful than your presence ever was when it was constantly offered without boundaries or intention, because only when she feels the quiet can she truly hear her thoughts about you, shifting from comfort to curiosity, from assumption to uncertainty, and from security to a subtle but undeniable worry that maybe, just maybe, you're slipping out of her reach. Let's be very clear. No woman wants to be the center of your universe if it means there's nothing else holding your world together. When your entire life revolves around her, when you place her at the very top without having anything solid underneath, she may enjoy the attention for a while, but eventually it becomes suffocating. She begins to question why you have so much free time, why you're always available, why you don't seem to have passions or goals that pull you away from her once in a while. And this lack of personal drive doesn't create comfort, it creates complacency. The truth is, when a man is focused on his mission, when he wakes up with purpose, when he's chasing something bigger than a relationship, he becomes infinitely more attractive. Purpose breeds discipline. It creates a certain energy around you, a sense of direction, of self-respect, of ambition that naturally draws a woman in. And when she sees that you're not just chasing her, but chasing your future, she begins to worry about keeping up with you. She begins to feel that subtle pressure of earning your attention rather than just receiving it by default. That's where the dynamic shifts. Because now she's not just sitting in a place of comfort, she's actively invested in making sure she holds your interest. That worry doesn't come from fear, It comes from respect. She respects the way you prioritize your goals, the way you manage your time, the way you never compromise your growth for temporary affection. And in that respect lies her silent question. If I don't match his pace, if I don't add value, what reason does he have to keep me in his life? That's the kind of healthy tension that keeps relationships alive. You're not neglecting her, you're showing her that love and ambition can coexist, that your world is full and her presence is not a necessity, it's a privilege. And when she sees that, she starts to evaluate her own efforts, her own contribution, her own position in your life. You stop being the man who seeks validation and become the man who inspires elevation. You stop being the one who asks for love and become the one who inspires it through action, through focus, through vision, through the kind of consistency that isn't desperate but deliberate. And in that deliberateness, she realizes she could lose something rare, something grounded, something that doesn't chase but still pulls, because true presence doesn't beg. It builds, and what builds naturally makes people worry about losing it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stop dancing around the truth. In a world where most people are just having sex, very few are truly making love. Even fewer know how to create an experience that lingers in her mind, weeks, months, even years after it happened. This isn't about being a porn star. This is about creating intimacy, connection, and powerful presence in the bedroom that makes her feel worshipped, seen, taken, and cherished, all at the same time. If you want to leave a mark on her soul, not just her body, then listen closely. If you think the game begins when the clothes hit the floor, you're already playing the wrong sport. The truth is, seduction starts long before the bedroom. It begins in how you look at her when she walks into the room, in how you make her feel when she speaks, in the tone of your voice when you say her name. It's in the subtle graze of your fingertips when you walk past her, the way you glance at her lips when she's talking, the way your energy communicates what your mouth hasn't said yet. Most men think foreplay starts with a kiss, but real foreplay starts with your presence, with how you hold space for her, how you make her feel seen without judgment, desired without desperation, respected and yet completely wanted at the same time. That contrast is intoxicating to a woman. It makes her body curious before her clothes even come off. She wants to be slowly unraveled, not aggressively pounced on. She wants to feel like the only woman in the world in that moment, like your attention doesn't scatter when you're near her. If you're checking your phone, distracted, mentally elsewhere, you've already lost her. The body doesn't open to someone who feels distant. Women crave connection. It is the gateway to surrender. Your goal isn't to impress her with words, but to move her with your attention. That means looking into her eyes longer than most people are comfortable with. That means knowing when to speak and when silence says more. That means teasing her with suggestion, not pushing her with pressure. When you give her your full presence, you communicate safety, mystery, and masculine confidence. 3 things that unlock her feminine desire. A woman begins to undress in her mind first. And if you can touch her mind, if you can stroke her imagination with subtlety, the body will soon follow. But the mistake many men make is going too fast. You rush into touch. You rush into physicality. But the mind of a woman blooms slowly, like a flower unfolding in sunlight. You can't force it open. You must invite it with warmth, with patience, with knowing. The way you speak matters. Is your voice low, deliberate, firm, yet calm? Or are you speaking to her like she's just another girl in your inbox? Because women can tell. They know when you're trying to get something from them versus when you're trying to give something to them. And let's talk about energy, because it's everything. You can say all the right words and still give off an energy that repels her. That's why inner work is essential. Are you grounded? Are you calm in your own body? Are you secure in your masculinity? Because if you're not, she'll feel that instability and her body won't trust yours. But if you bring calm, confidence, and clarity, she'll feel safe enough to surrender. That's the real secret. Safety opens the door to unforgettable intimacy. A woman cannot open up fully unless she feels emotionally and energetically safe. That doesn't mean you have to baby her. It means you have to hold her emotionally. Let her feel that you are solid. Let her feel that she's not going to be judged for what she wants, for how loud she gets, for how deep she feels. That kind of safety is magnetic. So when you talk to her, when you touch her shoulder as you pass, when you lean in close to say something only meant for her ears, do it with purpose. Don't play it cool. Be bold in your intention, but soft in your delivery. You're not trying to overpower her. You're trying to invite her into a space she won't want to leave. And that starts hours before you ever even touch her skin. Seduction is an energy you carry all day. It's in your breath, your patience, your eye contact, your sense of humor, your emotional awareness. It's in how you make her feel when no one else is watching, in how you speak to her when there's nothing to gain. If you can make her feel desired and respected at the same time, if you can make her laugh and then pause with a look that says you want more, if you can hold the tension without rushing to release it, you've already begun the process of becoming unforgettable. Touch is not just physical, it's emotional, psychological, even spiritual when done right. The difference between someone who's simply having sex and someone who's making a woman feel deeply connected is all in the intention behind every move. Every part of her body carries memory, sensation, sensitivity, and emotion. And when you move too fast, too predictably, or without presence, you skip over all the richness that creates intensity. Women notice how you touch them. They remember how it felt, not just where. When your touch is rushed, she feels used. When your touch is intentional, she feels chosen. Like her body is being explored by someone who's genuinely curious, not someone just trying to get to a destination. Her body is not a goal to achieve, it's a landscape to discover. And the man who takes his time to explore her with patience and reverence will always be remembered. When you first touch her, whether it's her hand, her face, or the curve of her hip, the energy behind your fingers should speak louder than words. You're saying, I'm here, I'm present, I'm not in a rush. I want to feel you, not just touch you. I want to feel you. And that makes all the difference. Because most women are used to being touched in a way that feels mechanical or selfish. But when your hands move slowly, when they pause and linger, when they trace without grabbing, when they awaken parts of her that have been overlooked, she starts to soften, not just her body, her walls. Because you're showing her that this moment is about more than pleasure. It's about connection, trust, surrender. You can't fake presence. She will feel the difference between a hand that's on autopilot and a hand that's being guided by desire mixed with mind. So, slow down. Let your fingers explore her collarbone. Let your palm rest gently on her thigh without rushing higher. Let your lips take their time, not just on her mouth, but on her neck, her shoulders, her back. Kiss places that most men ignore. Give attention to the areas that don't scream for it. That's where you create surprise, and surprise creates desire. When she doesn't know what's coming next, when your rhythm isn't predictable, when your hands feel like poetry and not routine, you activate her mind as much as her body. And remember, the mind is her biggest erogenous zone. The secret is variety and depth. Sometimes your touch is light, like a whisper, barely there, making her crave more. Sometimes it's firm, grounded, pulling her closer with assurance and heat. And sometimes you just pause, your hand resting, holding her like she's something delicate and sacred. That contrast, the interplay between gentleness and intensity, is what turns a physical act into an unforgettable experience. Because it says you understand her complexity. You're not here just for the fire. You're here to warm her soul. And then there's the power of eye contact. Don't just touch her. Look at her while you do. Let her see your desire, your admiration, your hunger. Let her feel seen. Because when you combine intentional touch with deep eye contact, the chemistry becomes undeniable. She begins to feel like you're not just touching her skin, you're touching her essence, her emotions, her hidden fantasies that she doesn't speak about. You're speaking a language without words, and if you do it well, she'll respond in ways you never imagined. Most importantly, stay responsive. Pay attention to her breathing, her moans, her reactions. Her body will tell you what she wants if you're listening. If she leans into your touch, go deeper. If she arches away, change pace. Don't force. Don't assume. Tune in. Be attuned to her like you would to your favorite song, feeling every beat, every note, every change in tempo. Because when you listen with your hands, when you touch with awareness, when you move with rhythm and heart, you give her something far beyond pleasure. You give her the gift of being understood, honored, and desired at a depth most men never reach. And once a woman feels that from your touch, once her body associates you with safety and slow-burning fire, she will crave you, remember you, and compare everyone else to the way you made her feel, like her body was a temple and you were there to worship it, not just enter it. There's a quiet strength in emotional maturity that speaks louder than any raised voice or dramatic reaction ever could. When you become a man who is calm under pressure, who responds instead of reacts, who listens more than he defends, you create a sense of stability that is both rare and deeply respected. Women may be drawn to charm, humor, or looks, but what makes them stay, what makes them worry about losing you, is emotional self-control. It shows her that you are not easily shaken, that you don't crumble under confrontation, that you don't let temporary emotions dictate permanent decisions. And that kind of stability is powerful, because in a world full of emotional chaos and inconsistent behavior, being the man who can hold himself together becomes a kind of silent authority. You're not cold, you're composed. You're not distant, you're discerning. You don't chase approval, you protect your peace. And when a woman sees that, she realizes that you are not a man who can be manipulated by sweet words or guilt trips, that you won't be swayed by emotional games, that you will walk away from anything that threatens your mental and emotional balance. That alone makes her stop and think. It makes her question her own actions, her tone, her words, because she knows that with you, disrespect or emotional chaos, not because you yell, not because you punish, but because your silence in those moments says everything. That silence becomes a mirror. It makes her wonder if she's losing access to your heart, to your thoughts, to your world. And in that wondering lies the seed of worry. She worries not because you threaten to leave, but because your emotional discipline shows her that you could, that you would, if necessary. And that possibility keeps her grounded, it keeps her respectful, it keeps her invested. Because emotional maturity doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means you know when and how to express, when to speak and when to walk away, when to give love and when to give space. And that awareness, that control, that deep understanding of your own value and limits makes you a man who doesn't chase chaos, who doesn't drown in emotional waves, but instead stands so solid that others are afraid to lose the peace you bring, the steadiness you offer, the grounded presence that reminds them that you are not just another man. They could lose someone irreplaceable if they're not careful. There's something deeply compelling about a man who is consistent in his values, but unpredictable in his expression. When a woman knows you're dependable at your core, that you're loyal, honest, and stable, but she doesn't always know what you'll do next, how you'll respond, where your focus will go next, it creates a kind of healthy tension that keeps her curious. That curiosity turns into mental engagement. She begins to anticipate, to think ahead, to put in effort, not just because she's trying to win your affection, but because she doesn't want to lose your attention. Being consistently kind, thoughtful, and respectful sets the foundation for trust, but introducing just enough variation in your patterns keeps things emotionally stimulating. When she doesn't know whether your next message will be a deep conversation or a playful tease, whether your weekend plan includes her or a solo mission to recharge or build your dream, whether you'll surprise her with your silence or your presence, her mind stays active. It doesn't settle into the comfort of predictability, and that edge is where worry grows. Not fear, not anxiety, but a gentle worry that reminds her you're not someone she can coast with. You're someone she has to stay present for. It's not about playing games or creating confusion. It's about being multidimensional, letting her see different sides of you, your ambition, your humor, your stillness, your spontaneity. Makes her feel like she's peeling back new layers all the time. And when a woman feels like there's more to discover about you, she never really relaxes into thinking she knows all of you. That unknown becomes magnetic. She finds herself wondering where she stands, even if you're clear about your intentions, because your energy never allows complacency. When you're unpredictable in ways that challenge her to grow, to respond, to elevate, she begins to reflect more, to analyze more, to feel more. That unpredictability paired with unwavering values is a rare balance. It means she can trust your heart, but not always predict your next move. And that contradiction is what keeps you on her mind when you're not around, keeps her replaying conversations, rereading messages, thinking twice before she takes you for granted, because consistency in character makes her feel safe, but unpredictability in expression makes her stay alert, makes her chase a little harder, makes her wonder if she's giving enough, doing enough, harming enough. That right there makes her the most unpredictable woman you've ever known. Enough to hold the attention of a man who doesn't just offer presence, he creates experience. And that experience is never quite the same twice. There's a quiet power in building a life that is already full, a life that doesn't pause or shrink or revolve around anyone else's presence. When a woman steps into your world and realizes that everything around you, your career, your health, your friends, your passions, your values, is moving with or without her, she begins to understand that your life is not a stage waiting for her to perform on, but a show that's already running. That realization plants a seed of worry, not because you're trying to make her feel excluded, but because you've made it clear, with or without her, that you are complete with or without her. And the beauty of that is this: it creates an invitation, not a dependency. She's not being asked to complete you. She's being offered the chance to complement something already solid. That makes her evaluate what she brings to the table, not just in terms of beauty or charm, but in presence, energy, consistency, and support. When you live like this, you stop seeking validation through romantic attention and start commanding respect through alignment. You become harder to impress because your standards are born from experience and self-awareness, not loneliness. And in turn, you become the kind of man who makes her worry, not because you've threatened her position, but because she senses that her presence must add value, not just exist in your space. She starts to feel the subtle pressure of asking herself, does he really need me? Or am I just lucky to be part of his world? That's the moment everything changes. You're no longer a man who tries to prove his worth. You're the man who shows it through the way you move, the way you prioritize, the way you protect your schedule and your peace. And she begins to adapt. She starts bringing more intention, more effort, more energy, not because you demanded it, but because your life demands respect by design. You're not waiting around, hoping for her attention. You're evolving, growing, leveling up so consistently that she knows if she doesn't match your momentum, she'll slowly drift out of sync with you. And that slow drift becomes her silent fear, because deep down she knows she's with someone who will never abandon himself just to keep her. And that's exactly the kind of man she doesn't want to lose. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, because silence, when used with purpose, speaks volumes that words often cannot reach. In the moments when emotions are running high, when she's expecting a reaction, a defense, a plea, and instead she's met with stillness, that silence becomes louder than any argument ever could. It forces reflection, it creates space, it makes her sit with her own thoughts instead of using yours to distract from them. When you hold back from explaining yourself every time, when you stop feeling the need to justify your value or argue your side endlessly, you reclaim your power. You show that you don't need validation to remain grounded, that you don't need to respond just because she provokes a reaction, and that you won't engage in emotional chaos just to prove a point. This restraint, this calm refusal to be pulled into a storm, creates a psychological shift. She starts wondering why you're quiet, what you're thinking, whether she went too far, whether she's losing you. And in that quiet gap, worry enters. Not because you yelled, not because you slammed a door, but because your stillness feels unfamiliar, unsettling, and impossible to read. That unreadability is powerful. It makes her revisit her actions, question her tone, analyze her behavior. And she does this not because she's afraid of punishment, but because she senses something important could be slipping away. She knows you're not the man who engages in drama for attention. You are the man who will quietly walk away from disrespect, who will disappear from chaos without burning bridges. And that quiet exit becomes her internal warning sign. Silence, when paired with emotional maturity, becomes a message of boundaries. It says, I've seen this before. I know how this goes, and I won't participate in it. And that refusal to fight, to plead, to explain yourself endlessly doesn't come from ego, it comes from peace. And peace is magnetic to those who don't. When she senses that your silence doesn't mean weakness, but awareness, that your distance isn't punishment, but protection, she starts to worry not just about losing your words, but losing your presence entirely. Because silence is not absence. It's the most deliberate form of communication, and when delivered by a man who knows his worth, it leaves her thinking long after you've gone quiet. One of the most underestimated but deeply impactful ways to make a woman worry about losing you is to become a man who is respected by others. Not because you demand it, but because your actions command it effortlessly. When she sees the way people respond to you, the way they admire your discipline, speak highly of your character, listen when you talk, follow your lead, she begins to recognize that she's not just dating a man, she's standing beside someone who others look up to. This external validation, not sought but naturally earned, shifts her perception from emotional connection to social realization. She starts to feel proud, but that pride quickly becomes responsibility. She begins to think about what it would feel like to lose someone who is admired, someone who is impactful, someone whose value extends beyond the relationship. When a man is respected in his circles, when his presence influences environments, when people want his time, trust his voice, and echo his values, it creates a silent but powerful sense of pressure in the relationship, not because you're flaunting your worth, but because your presence becomes a reminder that your value is visible to others. And the moment she sees that you don't need her praise to feel confident, that you walk into rooms and carry gravity, that others seek what you have, not just women, but men who want to learn, grow, or partner with you, her internal dialogue begins to shift. She starts questioning whether she's giving enough, whether she's supporting your mission, whether she's bringing value that aligns with the respect you receive elsewhere. That worry becomes quiet, respectful, and internal. But it's very real. She becomes more intentional, more attentive, more invested, because she knows you are not invisible, not forgettable, not someone who disappears into the background. You are a man who makes people think, who challenges comfort zones, who speaks with conviction, and that aura carries weight. And when she realizes that your value is being noticed beyond just her world, she starts to hold on to it more tightly, protect it, nurture it, not because you asked, not because you warned her, but because she senses that you're the kind of man others would be proud to stand beside, and the thought of watching someone else take that place becomes a quiet fear she can't ignore. So, how do you make a woman worry about you? By being a man worth worrying about. Don't chase worry. Don't force attention. Become the version of yourself that is so aligned, so valuable, and so emotionally centered that the thought of losing you feels like a real loss. You don't get women to worry by being loud, needy, or overly available. You get them to worry by living so well that they know they could lose something rare.